Good day, everyone. Before we begin, let's think about this. Have you ever noticed how our habits or actions can change just because of how we rewarded or influenced by people around us? For example, we smile when others smile back, or we study harder when praised. This simple idea is actually at the heart of behavior therapy, a way of understanding and changing human behavior through learning and experience. And with our presentation, we will talk about more about behavior therapy. Behavior therapy is a scientific approach that focuses on how our actions are learned and changed. It doesn't focus much on what we think or feel deep inside, but more on what we can see, our behavior. It studies how our environment affects us and how we can learn new behaviors to improve our lives. In this presentation, we will be discussing the key ideas of behavior therapy, its history, important figures behind it, and some of its characteristics. So on to the next slide, we have here the behavior therapy overview. It focuses on observable behavior, meaning that the things we can actually see people doing. It's based on learning principles, how we learn through experience. It's also scientific and evidence-based, meaning it relies on research and real results, not just ideas or theories. And it's used to treat many psychological disorders such as anxiety, depression, and phobias. So moving on to the historical background of behavior therapy. So it began in the 1950s as an alternative to psychoanalysis, which focused more on the unconscious mind. Instead, behavior therapy focused on actions and learning through experience. It was based on two main ideas, the classical conditioning and operant conditioning, developed by scientists like Pavlov and Skinner. Later on, psychologists like Albert Bandura and Arnold Lazarus added new ideas that included thoughts and beliefs, leading to what we now know as cognitive behavior therapy or CBT. So we have here the four areas of development and how it is related to behavior therapy. So behavior therapy is developed in four main areas. The first one is the classical conditioning, which means learning by association, like Pavlov's experiment, where dogs learn to salivate when they heard a bell. And number two, the operant conditioning, which means learning through rewards and punishments, by B.F. Skinner. And number three, the social cognitive theory, by watching others developed, by Albert Bandura. Number four, lastly, which is the cognitive behavior or the CBT, which combines behavior and thinking and showing how our thoughts influence our actions and emotions. And now we have the key concepts view of human nature. So behavior therapy sees humans as capable of change. It believes that our environment shapes us, but we also have the power to choose and learn new behaviors. Through learning and practice, people can improve and control their behavior. So moving on to the characteristics of behavior therapy. And behavior therapy has several important characteristics. The first one is that it is scientific and measurable, meaning it relies on data and observation. Number two, it focuses on current behavior, not the past experiences. Number three, it requires active participation from the client. They don't just talk, they practice and apply what they learn. Number four, it emphasizes learning and practice as the key to change. And finally, it shows that change is possible even without deeply analyzing one's past or emotions.
Hello everyone, I'm Kishi Therapeutic goals. What goals occupy a place of central importance in behavior therapy. The general goals of behavior therapy are to increase personal choice and to create new conditions to learning. So, kita as a counselor, we guide them nga maka-create sila goals nga dapat throughout the therapy session na sila ma-set nga goals nga dapat kani ilaning mabuhat, ilaning mahawa, kung na sila ma-set as a goal dyan nila after kani kahuman sa therapy. And we can help them by setting some goals nga dapat yamo nilang buhaton. The client, with the help of the therapist, defines specific treatment goals at the outset of the therapeutic process. Goals must be clear, concrete, understood, and agreed on by the client and the counselor. So, kana inyong buhaton nga goals dapat nakasinabot na mo kamo as a counselor and imuhang client inyo nang natabian ang may process nga kuan nga mo na throughout the session is mo ninyo pambuhaton mo ni mga possible nga may tabo and sa mga outcome po. Therapist function and role. Behavior therapists conduct a thorough functional assessment or what we call behavioral analysis. So, nagkuan sa mga tao ilang gi-experiment kung kuan ang behavior nila to identify the maintaining conditions by systematically gathering information about situational antecedents. A. The dimensions of the problem behavior for B, and the consequence is for C of the problem. This is known as the ABC model, which is A stands for antecedents, B for behavior, and C is for consequence. This model of behavior suggests that behavior is influenced by some particular events that precede it, called antecedents, and by certain events that follow it, called consequences. Antecedent events do for elicit a certain behavior. For example, a client who has trouble going to sleep, listening to a relaxation tape may serve as a cue for sleeping induction. So yeah, na client nga maglisod siya tog, like kanang usay pa na ko po maglisod kog tog. So for able nga ma-relax akong mind is mag-watch ra kog mga videos or maminog og mga music para akong magkainahinay nga comfortable ko matug or magka-nindot ang pamati. Consequences are events that maintain a behavior in some way, either by increasing or decreasing it. For example, a client may be more likely to return to counseling after the counselor offers verbal praise or encouragement for having come in or for having completed some homework. So, ang client kay ganahan siya magsigig balik tungod sa mga praises and encouragement, like for example, like kanang wow, very good, nindot kaayo mong pagbuhat ani and maka-proud ka, something like that. Behavioral practitioners must possess intuitive skills and clinical judgment in selecting appropriate treatment methods and in determining when to implement specific technique. So, dapat matanaw pa na nila unsay skills atong nga to before sila magkuag judgment nga og kuha nila kung unsay appropriate treatment nga mahatag sa client. Kinadyo na siya yung mga specific techniques. However, there are behavioral clinicians perform other functions as well. For example, the therapist strives to understand the function of client behaviors, including how certain behaviors originated and how they are sustained. So, ang therapist, so as me as a therapist, kay tanawon ako ang behavior sa akong client, kung okay lang ba siya, or stable or unstable na ba doing while buhat mi sa mo ang therapy session. The behavioral clinician uses strategies that have been research support for use for a particular kind of problem. These evidence-based strategies promote generalization and maintenance of behavior change. So, napod tayo mga research support, like mga evidence-based nga makasupport po sa itong problem, makibawta nga unsaon to make it better sa atong client, nga ma-maintain na to ang iyang behavior ba or pag-usab or sa mga changes ba. The clinician evaluates the success of the change plan by measuring progress towards the goals throughout the duration of the treatment. So, ato yung evaluate kung na success ba nga to ang therapy, kung nabay na usab sa ato ang plano, nakita ba na to ang progress sa atong client, kung nagka-okay na ba, nabay kausaban, ang nagkinahinay na ba na to na-achieve ang goal na tong atong and by the word itself, evaluates, daghan ta ba maagi how to evaluate someone, and as a therapist, mag-watch tag mga assessment ana para makita ilang progress, kung successful ba, kung naanabay changes or kausaban, just like atong tanawon ilang behavior and the personality itself, kung nabay kausaban, and throughout our therapy session na kinahinay magkausap. A key task of the therapist is to conduct follow-up assessment to see whether the changes are durable over time. Clients learn how to identify and cope with potential setbacks. So, mag-conduct dito mga follow-up assessment like ato bang ipa-try or mag-ask ng mga questions sa ilaha, but yes, at the same time kay kung okay na pa sila mga follow-up questions po. Ang kaning assessment is we use this para may bawa na to kung nabay kausaban na to ang client, kung effective ba or effective ba to ang ginahatag na treatment or process, or ang nabay kausaban sa iyaha. Clients learn how to identify and cope with potential setbacks. So, kung nila nga problema, ibaw lang sa pag-atumbangan na o sa pag-cope up, ibaw sa pag-identify sa ilang client experience in therapy. One of the unique contributions of therapy is that it provides the therapist with a well-defined system of procedure to employ. Both therapist and client have clearly defined roles, and the importance of client awareness and participation in the therapeutic process is stressed. So, as a client and as a therapist and a client, dapat kibota kung sa itong role. Kita nga therapist, kibota mo sa itong boundaries, kibota kung sa itong pagtanaw sa itong client lang, kibota itong mga set of boundaries, dili ta dapat po kung sa limitations ito, dapat natin limitations jud. And kay there's possibility magud nga makakause tag stress during our therapeutic process. We should also know our boundaries, kay kung once a therapist is a therapist and once a client is a client, so dapat dili jud ta ma-fall or like maibog ganun, kay we are there to treat them, ma-help sila nga ma-overcome ilang problema, dili nga mapasabot. And we should know what our role jud, kung unsa ta, kung therapist ra jud, and kung client is client. Behavior therapy is characterized by an active role for both therapist and client. The client engaged in behavioral rehearsal with feedback until skills are well learned and generally receives active homework assignment, such as self-monitoring of problem behaviors to complete between therapy session. So, mag-conjugate kaning behavior therapy is a active role sa both therapist and client. Mag-engage itong mga something maka-entertain sa atong client, maka-engage po sa kanang maka-rehearse or It is also important that as a therapist, we should know how to handle them or client and tangan nato sila feedback about their behavior kung nanabay kausaban or changes throughout our therapy session. For example, natay na kitaan sila nga nausab jud like dili na kaayo, for example running half or di na kayo sila magpada silang emotions, and because of that natay ihatag nila nga assessment or homework or activity nga which is maka-help pod sa ilaha, and then we yes pod kana and with feedback pod kana atong sa atong feedback sa ilaha kay maka-help magud na sila to engage and to learn more nga na to help with themselves pod nga ipagdayon na relationship between client and therapist. The charge is often made that the importance of the relationship between client and therapist is discounted in behavior therapy. So as a therapist, dapat masigurado na to nga ato ang client kay comfortable ra, and dapat effective therapist jud ta, like atong ma-feel sila nga comfortable ra sila mo share silang mga problems, silang mga gustong ipangsulti or bisag unsa pa na. But yeah, dili jud ta dapat magka-cause of mag-interest sa client kay dili jud na siya pwede sa kung unsa kung dapat kung ano jud ta client and therapist. And yeah, importante jud ang relationship sa client and therapist kay unsa di man maka-share si mo ang client kung wala mo connection sa mong client, so dili jud i-refer na lang na nimo sa lain nga therapist or psychologist para maka-help sila instead na imo pa mapasabot ang iyang problema. So niana si Anthony and Romer acknowledged that examining the efficacy of particular behavioral techniques has been given more emphasis in the quality of the therapeutic relationship in behavior therapy. For example, Lazarus 1993 believes a flexible repertoire of relationship styles plus a wide range of techniques enhances treatment outcome. He emphasizes that the need for therapeutic flexibility and versatility above all else. So, niana si Lazarus nga kung nakay flexible relationship style plus a wide range of techniques kay dako jud siya kanang possibility na ninot ang outcome or successful ang inyong therapy session kay kaya ingano jud na siya kay kung wala man mo'y connection as what I've said ganina kay dili ka maka-fix, dili mo makuha, which is maka-cause pagkag usamot pa. Additional, Lazarus contends that the cadence of client-therapist interaction differs from individual to individual and even from session to session. The skilled behavior therapists conceptualize problems behaviorally and make use of the client-therapist relationship in facilitating change. The client-therapist relationship is a foundation on which therapeutic strategies are built to help clients change in the direction they wish. So every client na stay kagustuhan nga maka-make lang process lang kagalingon kana ma-set na nila ilahang goal or plan ba nga may tabo para sa ilaha. So importante jud ang relationship between therapist and client, because once it succeeds mangud kay di na ta makakon sa tuang how to self-monitoring makaibaw na tag at sa pagkon sa tong kagalingon if what we are unsa tong gipang feel what problems we are facing right now kibaw na taon sa pag cope up, not literally nga kibaw na jud but somehow na progress on saon pag dalan. As a therapist, it's really important nga naatay connection or bond sa to ang client so that for effective counseling magud or therapy session kay dapat natin connection kay ma-feel man sa tong client nga comfortable sila to share their problems or ilang mga napangagian.
Application: Therapeutic techniques and procedure. Behavioral therapy is characterized by its implementation of specific, empirical, validated therapeutic methods that have shown effectiveness through client subjective feedback. This evidence-based methodology has been studied across various populations and disorders. According to Lazarus, behavioral therapists can apply any technique that has proven capable of altering behavior regardless of its theoretical origin, thus permitting integration with the other approaches such as mindfulness and acceptance-based therapies. Treatment strategies are creatively customized for each individual client rather than depending on the standard techniques. Common behavioral approaches encompasses applied behavioral analysis, relaxation training, systematic desensitization, exposure therapies, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing, social skills training, self-management, multimodal therapy, and mindfulness acceptance-based techniques. Operant conditioning techniques in ABA. So we have 4 operant techniques. We have core principles, application, goals, and ethical consideration. So let's have core principles. Core principles has 4 we have positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, extinction, and punishment. So positive reinforcement, adding a valued stimulus after a behavior to increase its frequency. For example, praise for good grades. Then for negative reinforcement, removing or avoiding an unpleasant stimulus to increase behavior. For example, waking up before an alarm to avoid its noise. Then for extinction, withholding reinforcement for previous reinforcement behavior to decrease or eliminate it. For example, is ignoring a child's tantrum to reduce tantrums. Extinction can cause temporary increases in unwanted behavior and may have side effects like aggression. So, and last is punishment. It reducing consequences to reduce the behavior. So we have 2 kind of punishment. We have positive and negative. So positive punishment, adding an aversive stimulus after a behavior. For example, is time out for misbehavior. And then for negative punishment, removing or reinforcing stimulus after behavior. For example, is taking away the TV time. Okay, so we have the number 2 ABA techniques. This application. So ABA applies this principle using the ABC model, which is antecedents, behavior, and consequences, to understand and change clients' behavior across cities. So goal is number 3, reinforcement, positive or negative, aims to increase desired behaviors. Then punishment aims to decrease undesired behaviors but should be used cautiously. Then ethical consideration. Positive reinforcement is preferred as the most effective and least aversive method, while the punishment should only be used after non-aversive method fails, as it doesn't teach replacement behavior and may not effectively suppress unwanted behavior in the long term. Progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR, is an effective tool for managing stress, providing both physical and mental relaxation when practiced consistently every day. PMR is particularly useful in preparing patients for surgical procedures, teaching them ways to cope with chronic pain and decreasing the likelihood of migraine occurrence. Furthermore, PMR is helpful in controlling various conditions, including asthma, headaches, hypertension, insomnia, irritable bowel syndrome, and panic disorder. It is frequently combined with other therapeutic approaches such as the systematic desensitization and biofeedback to boost its effectiveness. Systematic desensitization. Systematic desensitization is a type of behavior therapy created by Joseph Wolf, utilizing principles of classical conditioning. Its goal is to lessen the anxiety by progressively confronting clients with situations that triggers anxiety while keeping them in a relaxed state. This method helps clients become increasingly desensitized to their fear over time. Prior to starting therapy, therapists perform interviews and assessments to pinpoint specific fears and triggers. Once systematic desensitization is determined to be the appropriate treatment, it consists of three primary steps. So we have training in relaxation. Clients are instructed in the relaxation techniques like progressive muscles relaxation or peaceful imagery to help mitigate anxiety. So second, we have creating an anxiety hierarchy. The therapist collaborates with the client for formulate a ranked list of anxiety-provoking scenarios, ranging from least to most distressing. So the last one is implementation of systematic desensitization. While in a relaxed state, the client visualizes each situation starting with at least anxiety inducing and gradually progresses to more distressing scenarios as they gain comfort. If anxiety arises, relaxation techniques are enforced before proceeding. Eventually, clients learn to stay calm even when envisioning the most challenging situation. Assignments and ongoing practices are crucial for sustaining progress. This therapy is well supported by empirical research and is effective in addressing anxiety disorders and phobias. It is also utilized for issues such as anger, sleep disturbance, motion sickness, and nightmares. Systematic desensitization is broadly acknowledged as it enables clients to confront their fears in a gradual, secure manner. In vivo exposure and flooding. Exposure therapies aim to assist individuals in overcoming their fears and anxieties by gradually confronting the objects or situations they fear in the safe and controlled environment. There are two primary forms: in vivo exposure and flooding. In vivo exposure, it entails confronting real-life feared situations directly rather than just visualizing them. The therapist collaborates with the client to create a list of feared scenarios, ranking them from two most intimidating. The client then progressively faces each scenario until their fear subsides. Thus, the objective is to empower the individuals to confront anxiety without evasion. Occasionally, the therapist participates alongside the client in actual scenarios, or the clients engage in self-directed exposure independent. Flooding. consists of prolonged and intense exposure to feared object or situation, either in real life or through imagination. The individual remains in the situation until their fear diminishes naturally. These techniques helps individuals understand that their feared outcomes are unlikely to occur. Although flooding can be effective, it may also be stressful, requiring clients to fully understand and consent before proceeding. These methods are commonly employed to treat conditions such as phobias, panic disorders, OCD, PTSD, and social anxiety. Research indicates their effectiveness even when sometimes used in combination with the therapeutic approaches for enhanced results. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR, is an additional form of exposure thera- therapy designed for trauma. It integrates exposure to distressing memories with guided eye movements and cognitive strategies. Developed by Francine Shapiro, EMDR facilitates safe processing of traumatic experiences. Proper training for therapists is essential due to its potent emotional impacts. Studies suggest that EMDR is effective for trauma and may perform as well as or even better than alternative trainings. So now let's move on to social skills training, assertion training, and self-management. So social skills training, or SST, aids individuals in enhancing their capacity to communicate and engage effectively with others. This training is particularly beneficial for those experiencing social or emotional challenges stemming from inadequate interpersonal skills. SST employs methods such as instructions, demonstrations, role playing, and feedback to teach appropriate social conduct. Participants rehearse new skills in a varied scenario, receive feedback, and implement what they have learned in real life situations. This training can be instrumental in addressing issues like social anxiety, depression, ADHD, bullying, and substance dependence. A prevalent form of SST is assertion training, which instructs individuals on how to convey their thoughts, emotions, and needs in a confident and respectful manner, avoiding aggression. It is particularly useful for those who struggle with saying no, expressing anger, or advocating for themselves. Through demonstration, role playing, and feedback, often within group environments, participants learn to substitute passive or aggressive response with assertive ones. The object is for individuals to communicate openly while honoring the rights and feelings of others. Then, self-management program motivate individuals to take charge of their behavior and personal development. The focus of these programs is to assist people in establishing goals, tracking their actions, rewarding their progress, and creating plans for the change. The approach consists of 5 stages: setting attainable goals, identifying target behaviors, self monitoring, strategizing for change, and assessing outcomes. Self management fosters a sense of responsibility, confidence, and independence. It has been effectively utilized to address anxiety, depression, addiction, and health issues, and also various life challenges. Multimodal therapy, or clinical behavior therapy. So, multimodal therapy created by Arnold Lazarus represents a thorough and adaptable method for behavior therapy. This approach is grounded in social cognitive theory and incorporates various techniques from multiple therapeutic approaches to tackle each other individual specific issues. While primarily based in behavior therapy, it also embraces cognitive and emotional dimensions, providing a more comprehensive perspective. Lazarus cited that since individuals encounter different types of challenges, therapy should similarly employ diverse strategies. Practitioners of multimodal therapy are dynamic and flexible, serving as educators, mentors, and role models. They engage clients through teaching, providing feedback, demonstrating behaviors, and offering support to facilitate change. The primary aim is to identify the optimal combination of techniques that cater to each person's needs. A central element of this method is the basic ID model, which categorizes human personality into 7 dimensions. B for behavior, A for affect or emotion, then S for sensation or physical sensation, I for imagery or mental images, then C for cognition or thought processes, I for interpersonal relationship or social connection, D for drugs or biology or health, nutrition, and exercise. The therapeutic process begins with a comprehensive evaluation of all 7 dimensions to comprehend their interrelation. Subsequently, treatment aimed to enhance balance and functioning across these various aspects of individual's life. Mindfulness and acceptance-based cognitive behavior therapy. Mindfulness and acceptance-based cognitive behavior therapy is component of the third wave of behavioral therapies, incorporating additional aspects like mindfulness, acceptance, values, spirituality, and being present alongside the traditional cognitive behavioral techniques. This method seeks to assist individuals in creating a fulfilling life by being aware of their experiences, non judgmentally, and embracing themselves with compassion. Mindfulness refers to the practice of being attentive to present moment with openness and curiosity. It aids individuals in coping with issues like depression, anxiety, and stress by diminishing negative thought patterns. Acceptance involves allowing experiences, both positive and negative, without the urge to evade or control them, fostering personal development and self-kindness. 4 primary therapies evolve from this framework. First is dialectical behavior therapy or DBT, merge acceptance and change strategies to assist individuals, particularly those with borderline personality disorder, in managing their emotions and relationships. Second, mindfulness-based stress reduction employs meditation and yoga practices to alleviate stress and enhance awareness of the present moment. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy integrates mindfulness with CBT to prevent recurrence of depression by altering reactions to negative thoughts. Then last is acceptance and commitment therapy or ACT, guides clients to embrace their thoughts and feelings rather than resisting them while committing to actions that resonate with their core values. Application to group counseling. Group behavioral counseling emphasizes equipping clients with self-management, coping, and thinking abilities to help them tackle current and future obstacles. The goal of this group is to enhance members' autonomy, freedom, and self-assurance in everyday life. Behavioral group therapy is organized, proactive, and goal-driven, and evidence-supported. Group facilitators gather data prior to, during, and after sessions to track progress, and maintain accountability. They serve as instructors, mentors, and assisting members in learning and practicing new behaviors, establishing goals, and completing assignments to apply skills beyond the group. The distinct characteristic of behavioral group therapy consists of four. Then first is performing behavioral evaluation. Second is defining explicit collaborative objectives. Then third is implementing specific treatment techniques. And lastly, objectively assessing outcomes. Facilitator employs techniques like modeling, role-playing, relaxation, rehearsal, meditation, and mindfulness to aid the members in developing skills such as assertiveness and stress management. These are several types of behavioral group methodologies including social skills training groups, psychoeducational groups, stress management groups, multimodal group therapy, and lastly is mindfulness and acceptance-based behavior therapy groups.
And now let's talk about behavior therapy from a multicultural perspective. Behavior therapy has come clear advantage over many other theories in counseling. Culturally diverse clients because of their cultural and ethnic background. Some clients hold values that are contrary to the free expression of feelings and the sharing of personal concerns. So, yeah, ning multicultural perspective, lahi man yung tag gituhuan, dili jud na malikayan nga lahi tag gituhuan, lahi tag mga perspective or pananaw. So, atong mabuhat ra jud na is to learn that kana nga religion or what kay dili man jud nato sila mapugos nga usbon na nga perspective. For example, nakoy natanaw nga documentary from Cara David. Yes, kanang at such early age, kanang somewhere nga I think sa Mindanao to dapit siya is ipakasal siya. Ipakasal siya bisag bata pa siya, murag I think iyang edad kay something murag 11 or 14 or ano, and gipakasal siya kay na may something na nitabo siya which is nabuntis siya, and naman sila hang dito nga ituhuan nga kanon even though na rape siya is dapat to niya pakaslon katong tawhanan kay mo may lang tuhuan o dako na daw ang uwaw kung sila hang may tabo na. So yeah, di yun na to mailisan or kung ano sila convinced to change, but which is ano lang subtone and respect. Behavior therapy focuses on environmental conditions that contribute to a client problems. The foundation of ethical practice involves the therapist's familiarity with the client culture as well as the component application of this knowledge in formulating assessment, diagnostic, and treatment strategies. The behavioral approach has moved beyond treating client for a specific symptom or behavioral problem. So what have I said ganiya? We should be extra sensitive kay lahi mo siya tag ituhuan So there's a possibility nga maka-offend ta kay ganun. So dapat ato yun no atong familiarize ilahang culture atong before kanasang ato ang pag formulate og assessment ko appropriate ba or dili kay malain niya sila. And shortcomings from a diversity perspective, according to Spiegler and Guavermont 2010, a future challenge for behavior therapists is to develop empirically based recommendations for how behavior therapy can optimally serve culturally diverse clients. The fact that behavioral interventions often work well raises an interesting issue in multicultural counseling. It is essential for therapists to conduct a thorough assessment of the interpersonal and cultural dimensions of the problem. Clients should be helped in assessing possible consequences in some on their newly acquired social skills. So according to Spiegler and Overmore, kay challenge ni sa mga behavior therapists kay based sa recommendations for how behavior therapy can optimally serve culturally diverse clients. Magkalisod ganitang kay say lahi mo tag gituwa, lahi tag culture, lahi tag mga beliefs. And raises interesting issue so issues sa this kay di mo gud na malikayan, and we cannot help them if ingana ilang pagtuo dili na to ma-change ilang perspective. So it is essential for a therapist to conduct a thorough assessment of the interpersonal and cultural dimensions of the problem. So we have system possible consequences on there. So dapat atos lang ipaibaw pod kung unsay mga possible consequences sa ilang mga bagong in-acquired nga social skills. Although behavior therapy is sensitive in difference among clients in broad sense, behavior therapists need to become more responsive to specific issues pertaining to all forms of diversity. So para sa kong resulti, dapat sensitive ta kay sa mga specific issues ubay jud na sa toa, because race, gender, ethnicity, and sexual orientation are critical variables that influence the process and outcome of therapy. Namo ko na sa toa nga itong isa for race, kibaw na taan na. And as a therapist kay dapat we should set boundaries, limitations sa itong masulti kay, and dapat ma-studied po na ito na kay basig natin masulti nga dili mao or lahi ilang tuhuan. Gender po pareha na as a gender kay mapod na dapat po pag more sensitive pa ta sa itong ibang sulti kay there namon dyan madagagwa sa gender na to, dili ra women and men, but there are also other kinds of gender. And sexual orientation are critical variables that influence the process and outcome of therapy. It is essential that behavioral therapists pay careful attention to these factors and address social justice issues as they arise in a client's therapy. So dapat careful ta sa itong ipangsulti kay maka-offend ya sila ha. And these are factors address social justice issues. Common siya nga issues sa karong panahon na tagantag na ato ba nga ingana. And we must be extra careful jud and pay attention. Dapat as a therapist, dapat magsigitag basa-basag mga books and mga bagong mga niabot nga theories para by this makahelp to sa ilahang nga ma-achieve ilahang goal, or atos lang mahinahinay matabangan, not mahinahinay but ato sila matabangan po. The fact that behavioral interventions often work real issues and interesting and multicultural when clients significant personal change, it is very likely that others in their environment will react to them differently. So nasa possible po nga ilang dito lang environment kay makareact og lain po sila ha. Before deciding to quickly on goals for therapy, the counselor and client need to discuss the complexity inherent in change. Yeah. Once goals are determined and therapy is underway, clients should have opportunities to talk about the problems they encounter as they bring new skills and behavior into their homework and settings. So once ma-determine na nila ilahang goals, ilang gusto nga may tabo, dapat they have the opportunities to talk about the problems, dapat natos na matagaan. Ilang masulti sa to ilang problema, dapat comfortable sila. For able nga sila ma-encounter nga lain nga problem or not problem, lain nga place, dapat makaibaw sila kung saan pagtubangan na kay new skills and behavior to their home. So should have first to talk about encounters they bring new skills and behavior into their home work settings. So mausab naman dyan na ilang behavior, na dyan na yung mga kausaban. So mahinay nilang adjust sila mga home and work settings. And yes, dapat open pod ang client to share sa tuwa kung unsay mga na-encounter nila when applying new skills and behavior silang home and work environment.
Behavior therapy applied to the case of Stan. So Stan displays a variety of interconnected psychological, behavioral, emotional, cognitive, psychological, and interpersonal issues. These consist of behavioral, defensive, lack of eye contact, speech hesitancy, substance misuse, inadequate sleep, and avoidance of social interaction. Then emotional is feeling of anxiety, panic attacks, depression, low self-esteem, fear of rejection, and a sense of isolation. While physiological is experiencing dizziness, heart palpitation, and headaches. Then cognitive is engaging in self-sabotaging thoughts, rigid beliefs about shoulds and must, the negative comparison to others, and fear of mortality. Interpersonal is difficulties with assertiveness, strained relationship with parents, the limited friendships, fear of intimacy, and feeling of social inferiority. Then the therapist employs behavioral therapy starting with a comprehensive assessment to pinpoint significant problem areas. Then Stan is then supported in formulating specific and measurable goals, shifting his focus from what he seeks to remove to what he aims to cultivate. Behavioral skills training is introduced, incorporating models, role-playing, and feedback to assist Stan in enhancing his interaction at work. Imaginal exposure and systematic desensitization are implemented to tackle Stan's fear of failure and social anxieties, particularly concerning women. Relaxation techniques are taught, and Stan develops a fear of hierarchy for stepwise posture. Cultural and environmental considerations. The therapy also recognizes that alteration in Stan's behavior may create new interpersonal difficulties. Consequently, the therapist and the client examine the wider social and cultural context and the potential impacts of the changes. Assist Stan in alleviating anxiety and guilt, developing healthier coping mechanisms, and embracing more constructive behaviors, ultimately enhancing his overall functioning and life satisfaction.
And now, to sum it all, behavior therapy is a practical and scientific approach that helps people change their behavior through learning and practice. It focuses on what can be observed and measured, our actions, instead of digging deeply into emotions or the unconscious mind. Developed by scientists like B.F. Skinner, Albert Bandura, and Arnold Lazarus. It has proven effective for problems such as anxiety, stress, and depression. Its main strength is that it's clear, goal oriented, and based on evidence, making it very effective in real life situations. However, one limitation is that it doesn't always focus on deeper emotional or personal issues. Still, overall, behavior therapy remains one of the most useful, successful, and widely applied methods in modern psychology. So now that's the end of our presentation. This has been Group 9 with the ending quote: "A person does not act upon the world acts upon him," by V.F. Skinner. And this reminds us that our environment plays a big role in shaping who we are. But with the right learning and effort, we can change our behavior and improve ourselves. That would be all for our presentation. Thank you for listening.